Hello, pretties. It's your mistress, the Queen of Lions here, and today we're doing another episode of Shadows and Pretties. This is episode 12, and I did a poll about maybe a week or so ago or something. I don't know when it was, but I did a poll asking what should I talk about next for my next topic of Shadows and Pretties, and most of you guys have said Hercules, so I talked about that, and I have given another choice, which is Titanic. So today we're going to be talking about James Cameron's Titanic, or we could just say Jack and Rose Titanic. Now this movie came out in 1997. Wow, it's a really old movie. It's almost 25 years old. Oh my goodness. Now, for those who don't like, Titanic, the Jack and Rose one, because it's a romance and it's mainly boring, not about the ship, but it's about the two characters, Jack and Rose. If you don't like, what you're going to hear about this episode, like if you're not a fan of Titanic or something, then feel free to just don't bother with this video. I'm not trying to sound like a hypocrite, but anyways, let's begin. Now basically this is about talking about the history of the Titanic, about what happened to the passengers. Yeah, a lot of people have died when the Titanic sunk in 1912 in April. A lot of people have died on the Titanic, the sinking of it. And few people have gotten away from the sinking and stuff when they only had a few lifeboats. But they didn't have enough to, for everyone else. However, though, we're going to say right now that this takes back way before, technology, internet, video games, anything you could think of. This whole story is taking place way back then. Even though this movie came out in the 90s, it's still a really amazing movie and fun and enjoyable to watch. Now, we're going to talk about Rose. Now, Rose Calvert-Dawson is an old lady who basically explains and tells her story to the people about her experience with Titanic. And now we go on with the actual story about Rose's flashback. Rose is like a young lady, and she's like, I believe 17 or 18 years old, and she's like being forced to be engaged and marry someone named Cal Hockley, which of course he is... Well, I'm just going to say he's a prick. In many ways that I can count, he is a prick, mainly. But I will explain about why he is the way he is. He's kind of like the villain of the movie, so I guess you could kind of say, he is one. Now, first of all, I would like to say right now is that when Rose, along with Ruth and Rose's fiance, Cal, they aboard on the Titanic on the day the Titanic was leaving in 1912. So basically, we get to see another character who Rose falls in love with later on in the film, named Jack Dawson. Jack Dawson won lucky hand in poker on the Titanic ticket, so he gets onto the ship along with his best buddy. I think two of them or something, and the Titanic leaves. So basically, Rose is being forced to, do stuff with Cal and stuff, and she doesn't want that. The marriage of her and Cal was arranged by her mother. So because her mother said that her father, ever since Rose's father passed away, they've been, struggling with money and stuff. And of course, Rose marrying Cal would pretty much save her and her mother, a lot of money. But of course, Rose does not want what her mother wants. So she basically doesn't want to do what her mother wants, and her mother says, we're women, life isn't fair, and stuff like that. So, later on in the movie, Rose attempts to jump off the Titanic, at the back of the Titanic, where no one could see her, but of course, she ends up being stopped by Jack Dawson, who encourages her not to do it. So, of course, Rose slips and almost falls off the ship anyway, but Jack saves her. Of course, Cal tries to arrest Jack, but Rose protests, saying that, Jack saved her. So, basically, they decide to let Jack go, since he was the one who saved Rose, and he goes to first class diner with them one night, and of course, they get to meet, some people there, like Molly Brown, being one of Rose's friends, and lots of other stuff, we can just say. Now, also, I can definitely say, throughout the movie, Jack starts to fall in love with Rose, and Rose falls in love with Jack. So, of course, it's really it's really something when you come to think of it, because, ever since, Rose starts hanging out with Jack, Cal becomes more and more jealous and more angry, and I'm going to say something right now, that what he does to Rose is completely messed up. He hits Rose. I'm not joking. He actually abuses Rose physically, like slapping her in her face and stuff like that, and verbally. He abused her verbally as well, and emotionally, and even makes Rose feel messed up. So I guess maybe that's why Rose was a little suicidal here and there. But other than that, we could definitely say that Rose actually did a lot of great concept when it comes to playing her role. She was a very strong character. Now, of course, throughout the movie, Rose and Jack have been sneaking out to do stuff like going to hang out together and stuff like that, making love to each other. And yes, they do make love in the movie. They don't really show it. Like, don't say it's like a rated R movie, because it's not. It's like a PG-13 movie. So basically, Rose and Jack are doing what they normally would do, and of course, Rose does not love Cal, but Cal wants Rose to be with him, but of course she refuses. So every time she refuses, Cal ends up bursting out, like, in anger out to Rose, because he wants her to be with Cal. Now, throughout the movie, later on, when the Titanic hits the iceberg, yes, on the date, that was one of the days in 1912 when the Titanic sunk, Rose ends up, she basically ends up being, told off by Cal that, that she's not allowed to speak to Jack again and stuff like that. That's just like her mother did, too. And Jack ends up getting arrested, and when the Titanic starts to sink, Rose was about to go, with them, but she decides to go save Jack. So she saves Jack from being locked up, and they had to go get out of the Titanic. But however, though, during the movie, during the sinking, Killjoy or something, Lovejoy ends up trying to shoot and kill Jack and Rose, but unsuccessfully was able to do so. And of course, Rose and Jack were stuck on the Titanic, being sunk into it with them. However, Rose gets on like a wooden door that is floating, and Jack ends up, they can't even share it. Here's the sad part coming up, is that Jack dies from hypothermia and even being freezing in the water. And even though there was room on the door that Jack could have just shared with Rose, but I don't understand why that's the case with it. But I can understand, why they decide to do, certain stuff. And it's pretty sad when you come to think of it, that after Jack dies, Rose gets saved from a group of people that were trying to see if there was any survivors on the Titanic, and there was very few survivors, Rose being one of them. So basically, Rose ends up being saved, and she ends up calling herself Dawson. And of course, Cal never found her, and it is said that Cal did end up killing himself, which that was being told in the story, that what Cal actually did to himself after he couldn't find Rose, thinking that Rose was dead and stuff like that. And I think it's the same with her mother. Her mother thought Rose was dead as well. So basically, Rose went on with her life, doing what she normally does. And the old Rose ends up dying in her own sleep, mainly because of her old age. And we do get to see the ending where, I don't know if this is like a dream or a hallucination or something, but Rose goes to the Titanic and ends up meeting Jack again. And yeah, that's basically pretty much the ending of Titanic. I actually thought this movie was actually really good, and I didn't do a movie review on this, but it's kind of like a review, mainly just, explaining. Now, basically, Rose being the pretty one we see, she's dressing up in, certain dresses and stuff like that. This is the kind of dresses that a lot of people used to dress way back then in the 1900s, before people were allowed to wear, random t-shirts, random shorts, random dresses, skirts, and etc. Look at what clothes we're wearing today and compare them to what people wore in the 1900s, the early 1900s. Take a look at them and take a look at the clothes you're wearing yourself and explain the differences. Well, ladies had to wear certain clothing back then, and same with men. And men and women, I don't think they were allowed to cross-dress as well. Which, of course, some people still do cross-dressing every now and then, which that has happened. Take a look at Jesse and James from Pokemon. They have done cross-dressing lots of times themselves. But I honestly found this movie to be rather enjoyable, and James Cameron made one of the best movies of all time, with Leonardo DiCaprio as Jack and Kate Winslet as Rose Dawson, or Baker or something. Oh my god. I can't even say Rose's like actual last name before she changed it to Dawson. Like, I can't honestly remember, how amazing this is. Just amazing to see. It's just really Lee want that too. Which of course this is just, I'm sorry people, I just can't really talk really much because I'm getting like Discord messages from random people, not saying who, but I'm getting like random Discord messages from certain people. I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying who's messaging me on Discord, but I am getting a lot of Discord messages. So I'm going to try to wrap up this as best I can. This is just very short because a short episode, not as long as the other ones, mainly because, I don't know, it's basically, Rose is set to be married. So, of course, here's the thing. I'm not really crazy on, I really don't like the feel of, arranged marriages. That is just, something I really like. Being married to someone you don't know, like, oh my god, like, it's really, really interesting to say the least. So, of course, that's just something right here. But, I might be just being hypocritical, but I don't know. I just don't really know. And it's based on the history. And, the fictional characters, there was no Jack in the actual Titanic. There was no Rose Dawson. Like, they were just probably just characters just added in there for the sake of being added in there. Although there are some historical characters that were in as well. So, of course, that was just probably, know what I want. So, I can definitely say that this movie actually did pretty good in many ways that I can count. Now, I could definitely really say right now that, there were actually some, you could actually look on, Google Images, and you'll see a lot of images of, the Titanic that is underwater today. So you will be seeing those, and you can even see history pictures of the Titanic inside. And here's one thing I can definitely say is that the Titanic is slowly being eaten away. I don't even know if it's still going to be there in the next 100 years, but you never know. It may be still there in 100 years or something. But just look on Google Images right now, and you'll probably see how really it's slowly beginning to be eaten away and disappeared. So I guess I could definitely say, the Titanic Rose and Jack story was actually very amazing. And even though it was sad to see Jack died, but however, the story itself was actually really, really awesome. So, of course, we could definitely say that the story itself was absolutely amazing. So, of course, there were a few times where, Rose secretly joins Jack at a third-party class, and, of course, unaware of Jack's and Ruth's disapproval, Rose rebuffs Jack's advantages, but later she realizes she prefers him over Cal, and of course, Bow and Sunset. So of course, Rose takes Jack to the stateroom and requests, and of course that's when Rose poses a nude costume, posing herself as nude, and Jack ends up drawing. That's how women were acting like back in the old days as well. And of course, later on itself, we ended up seeing, that we get to see our nice character, Rose Dawson, in action in this movie. And I really like this one. So, of course, with the friendship of Jack and Rose, they first became friends, then they became falling in love. So, it's sad that they didn't get married, though, which I would have loved to see that. Like, if Jack didn't die, I'm sure the story would be a little different. But anyways, that's just probably my opinion. But you guys can, let me know what your thoughts and opinions on the movie. Now, First of all, before I wrap up the review, if you don't like this movie, I respect your opinion. But as long as you respect my opinion, then we should all be good. Now, anyways, with that being said, what do you think of this episode and the movie Titanic? Do you guys like it? Do you guys not? Also, if I am missing any information about the movie or the historical events, please feel free to let me know in the comments below, and I will be sure to get to them. And as always, I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're brand new here to this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so you guys will not miss an upload. And like always, I am going to be seeing you all in the next video. Peace out.